Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our county council meeting for November 15th, 2023. We will call the meeting to order.
Moved by Deputy Warden Smith, seconded by Councillor Greenwood Spears. Resolved that council resolve itself into committee of the whole closed session as authorized under section 239 of the Municipal Act to consider adoption of closed minutes of meeting held October 18, 2023. Personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, as it relates to the annual performance appraisal of the Chief Administrative Officer, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, as it relates to county approval authority.
Any questions? All in favor? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Frontenac County Council meeting for Wednesday, November the 15th, 2023. We will call the meeting back to order.
We begin this gathering by acknowledging and celebrating these traditional lands as the gathering place of the First Peoples and their ancestors, who are entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Today, the county is committed to working with Indigenous peoples and all residents to pursue a united path of reconciliation. Warden, we do have quorum.
Okay, sorry, we have a quorum. Council is going to rise and report from closed session.
Moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Gowdy. Resolved that council rise from closed session, that the rules of procedural bylaw number 2022-0026 be waived, and that the warden report.
Any comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Leonard, seconded by Councillor Fowler, that county council authorize the warden and clerk to enter into an agreement with Palmer and Associates for the recruitment of a chief administrative officer.
Any comments? All in favor? I guess that pretty well tells everybody what's going on, doesn't it? Adoption of the minutes. Oh, sorry. What would you like? Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Councillor Gowdy.
Thank you, Warden. On the information reports from the CAO, item A, 2023-13 Corporate Services Transportation Report. I have a pecuniary interest due to my place of employment, and I wrote the report.
Thank you. No other adoption of minutes?
Moved by Councillor Lichty, seconded by Deputy Warden Smith. Resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting held October 18, 2023 be adopted.
Any questions? All in favor? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears, seconded by Councillor Saunders. Resolved that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole budget meetings held October 24th and 25th, 2023 be adopted.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Today we have with us a delegation and or presentations. Mr. Andrew McCann and Mr. Hugh Cowan will be representing the Wolf Island EMS Committee, and they will address council. It should be on, and if it is, just push the button on the front and the red light should come on. There we go. And you are?
I'm Dr. Andrew McCallum.
Welcome.
Good morning, councillors. I would first like to thank you for the opportunity on behalf of myself and Mr. Cowan to address you regarding the matter before us, which is of great concern to us. I don't intend to read the full paper which you received with your agenda. In the interest of time, I will highlight only the salient points of that paper. By training, I'm an emergency physician. I practiced emergency medicine and trauma for 2 decades, then moved into senior leadership positions. My last posting was as president and CEO of Orange, Ontario's air ambulance. During my time in emergency medicine, I had an extensive experience working with paramedics, and for several years oversaw the base hospital in Toronto. So I have some knowledge of this subject. I have owned a home on Wolf Island for over 20 years and now spend a significant proportion of my time there. In the last couple of years, the deployment plan for Frontenac paramedic service was changed to remove the paramedics and ambulance that were previously stationed on Wolf Island. This leaves Wolf Island without an ambulance response that meets the minimum standards set by the Ministry of Health for the highest priority calls. These life-threatening calls, known as CTAS 1 calls, virtually never will receive a response within the MOH's standard, simply because now the ambulance must respond from the mainland via ferry. The stats reported to the MOH by Frontenac County, as required in Regulation 257/00 of the Ambulance Act, obscure the situation on Wolf Island. Frontenac Paramedic Services are required to set a target of this percentage of ambulance response times that meet the 8 to 10 minute standard. Frontenac Paramedic Services was slightly below that standard at 70% for CTAS 1 calls in 2022. And I presume this is due to increasing demand and offload delays, issues which you're well aware of. However, these stats hide the fact that there is one geographic area in Frontenac County, the islands of Wolf, Howe, and Simcoe, that never achieve the standard. In fact, on Wolf Island, the percentage of calls that fall within the MOH standard for all CTAS levels is 0% for all cases. As the ambulance is not stationed on Wolf Island, achieving an 8 to 10 minute standard response time is an impossibility, simply due to the ferry response. The standard for sudden cardiac arrest is 6 minutes. Again, an even more improbable number with the current ambulance deployment. I should mention that though Howe Island has ferry access only as well, there are a couple of important differences. First, the ferry is available 24/7. Second, the actual ferry crossing takes less than 10 minutes. And finally, the island itself is significantly geographically smaller. Unfortunately, Orange is not the solution to this problem, as much as I admire the important work they do. Their helicopters are not primary responders and would not arrive from the Toronto or Ottawa bases in under 40 minutes at any time, if they're available and not otherwise tasked. And at night, an ambulance would still be required, as Orange helicopters must land at the helipad on Wolf Island, and thus there's ground transport still required. So what's the effect of this? It's delaying getting patients to the necessary time-sensitive treatments they might need. For example, for heart attack patients, the dictum is time is muscle, meaning heart muscle is dead or damaged by delays to the angioplasty suite or to cardiac bypass. For stroke patients, time is brain, meaning brain cells are lost due to prolonged blood flow, again, due to delays getting the patient to the lab to get that treatment for cerebral clot removal. And in trauma, which is unfortunately, as you all know, all too common in agriculture, there's the golden hour, which is the time a patient bleeding can compensate for blood loss, and after which serious damage, shock, and in the worst cases, death occurs. Therefore, the current deployment of ambulances denies Wolf Island's residents care that is at the minimum standard for these serious conditions. But what's the solution? Well, there's an obvious one. The County of Frontenac is not the only municipality that has islands just off its waterfront. The City of Toronto also has islands. As noted in the paper, that city, recognizing the risk of not having an ambulance service expeditiously available on the Toronto Islands, has chosen to continuously station an ambulance on the islands. If that ambulance is required to leave the island, it is backfilled. The deployment plan as it currently is has a disproportionate effect on Wolf Island, and it's negative. It is not just another rural community. It is surrounded by water, and thus there's no ability for Wolf Island to have mutual aid agreements with surrounding municipalities, as would occur in land-bound rural communities. There, other paramedic services are asked to assist and often do. To conclude, we ask that County Council direct that the Frontenac Paramedic Deployment Plan include a provision to station an ambulance on Wolf Island on a continuous full-time basis with backfill from the mainland, should the ambulance be required to depart the island. An ambulance station on Wolf Island would allow the response times for our community to fall within the MOH standard because the ambulance would be responding directly from the island, then proceeding to the ferry. We're keenly aware that you and your officials are trying to do the best you can with the limited resources you have. We know as well that people of goodwill are trying to find solutions to problems like this. We earnestly hope that the solution can be found at the county level. However, please know that this will remain a critical issue until and unless an appropriate solution is found. And now I'm just going to turn the mic over to Mr. Cowan for a brief closing statement.
Good morning. My name is Hugh Cowan. I'm a lawyer by training and a resident for the last 20 years of Wolf Island. What are we doing here? Well, to my way of thinking, what we're trying to do is in good faith, give a heads up to Frontenac County Council that the decision to remove the ambulance from the island has put the residents and visitors to Wolf Island in an intolerable situation. And we don't think that this can be allowed to continue. So what are we doing about it? Well, we have spent a considerable amount of time going through what we believe are the salient issues. Money, availability of money is always an issue. But with respect, we think the decision to remove the ambulance base on the island was an incorrect decision. So we have provided you with the paper that came out with your agenda. We intend to send that paper to the appropriate people at Ministry of Health and to ask for their assistance in coming to an acceptable conclusion, which would see the reestablishment of a 24/7 ambulance base on Wolf Island. We believe that if this isn't resolved along those lines, that death, serious injury to residents or visitors to Wolf Island will inevitably occur. We've been fortunate so far that, to the best of our knowledge, that hasn't occurred, but it will. And council, whether you like it or not, will ultimately, if there is a death, will ultimately be judged by an inquest or a public inquiry as to what happened. So we would urge you to work with us and with others to try and bring an acceptable resolution to what, as I say, is presently intolerable. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody from county council have a question? Counselor Fowler.
To the committee there, I can understand your situation. From North Frontenac, we have a similar thing in that our ambulance, from what I understand, isn't manned 24 hours a day. So there's a long period of time. And I often wonder, and I'm in that age group, that, you know, what would happen if something happened to myself or my wife or my friends. With the Wolf Island, it's kind of unique in that it's surrounded by water. And I was just wondering, an ambulance costs so much money, to man it costs so much money. Are there, other than the helicopters, it's hard to get to the island. I was just wondering if there was a special watercraft that could be made into sort of a transport for an ambulance that we could pay for, that would be able to get us across the water quickly whenever you need it. I just wonder if that was ever anything that was taken into consideration. And I'm open for criticism there too.
Well,
Probably should use the microphone if you want.
there is in Ontario one ambulance boat, and it crosses the Moose River between Moosonee and Moose Factory. And I know it well because Orange has a base there as well. That boat has had numerous logistical challenges over the period of time it's been in place. During the shoulder seasons, freeze up and break up, it can't operate. The training of the paramedics, because you have to train the paramedics to operate the boat as well. So it's an additional training burden. And then I would hesitate certainly with the Wolf Island ferry, because as you know, freeze up does occur there as well. There's a bubbler system. But the weather conditions on the Great Lakes are more challenging. Hard to believe, but they are more challenging than the Moose River. So it would be an imperfect, but I guess something you could contemplate. But I think from the standpoint of maintaining the skill set of the paramedics who would be involved necessarily, it might be maybe not the most cost-effective way to do it, actually, believe it or not.
Thank you very much.
Counselor Saunders.
Thank you, Warden. First of all, thank you for your presentation and thank you for the work that your team, your committee is doing. It's a very difficult situation and trying to find both a short and long-term solution is challenging. In your example with Toronto Islands, you mentioned one of the things they do is they have an ambulance position there, and then when that leaves, another one comes over.
Correct.
So I'm not sure who to address this question to, but is it possible in our current deployment of ambulances through Frontenac paramedics, without an actual ambulance station there, could an ambulance be dispatched to the island during the normal, I guess, dispersal of the ambulances at the start of the shift? And then if that was called away, have another one move over. So it basically is a redeploy. I guess I'm suggesting, is there potential for a redeployment of the ambulances at the start of shift to provide some at least short-term immediate resolution?
I'm not the best person to answer.
Well,
that.
I wasn't who to send the question to, so I guess I'll pass that
I
on.
could
to-
speculate, but I'm not the operator.
Councillor Greenwood Spears.
There actually has been an ambulance paramedic station on Wolf Island for a decade. And the decision of this council was to stop paying the rent for that space. So the space is actually there. We had actually built a small home and that for paramedics that have to stay 24 hours a day was well received in that. But again, that was a decision done by council. But I do appreciate the new information you provided, especially around Toronto Island. And I appreciate the concerns that have been voiced by many residents. And as the daughter of a nurse who spent many accident scenes as a child helping my mother, and as a nurse myself, Nat, who has been called on by residents to help, I do appreciate the need that is there, even an anaphylactic response, and that if you don't get them back after the first 20 minutes, and that after you give them the epinephrine, it's not going to be good. They need to be in acute care fast. So there is a challenge all the way along. And I commend you for this research. And that, as I said, I wasn't aware of Toronto Island. It's a very good example. And one thing about the proposal of having a boat, I don't think it would make it down the 7th Line Road to get to the actual scene of the problem. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I have a couple comments and I'm not being argumentative, so nobody take this the wrong way. I read the letter to council. There was no ferry. So you're not getting off the island. Whether there's an ambulance sitting there or not, you're not getting off the island. Secondly, they had to call in Coast Guard. Somebody took them over to Kingston. If you can get off the island, you're probably the closest to any hospital of anybody in Frontenac County that's waiting for an ambulance. Secondly, in South Frontenac, and I'm not saying you haven't looked at options, I don't know, but we own 2 boats. And that's because of island residents. And so when fire is called and paramedics is called, we send a boat. And we send a boat sometimes with a paramedic in it, or we meet them at the mainland. So I'm just asking whether this goes back and is reapproved or not approved. I'm not saying that. But has the island residents looked at options? And I think there are options other than just saying an ambulance needs to be sitting on that island, even if it can't get off. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to be argument. I've read the letters. I've saw the stuff, and that's all my comment is. I don't, you can respond if you want. It doesn't matter.
I'd like to respond to a couple of,
Okay.
one is obviously the point is moot if the ferry doesn't operate, and we all are aware of the challenges that the ferry has had with its reliability and frequency of operation. So I would concur. If you can't get them off the island, you really have no choice but orange. And that would be, but to be fair, that's an unusual situation. The ferry generally does operate. There have been instances where it doesn't.
It was Coast Guard, wasn't it? It wasn't orange.
That's correct.
Coast.
They had to use the Coast Guard because the weather precluded using orange. So you're absolutely right. The second point you made regarding the boat, I'm not sure where the boat's going, where it's departing from and going to. But as I say, I think the issue with the open water or the near open water of the Wolf Island Ferry crossing is a little bit different. And I can tell you, I have lots of experience with the ambulance boat that operated in Moose Factory, Moosonee, because we were responsible for that area when I was with Orange. And it was very difficult. There were continual mechanical outages. It just wasn't reliably available, again, because of weather and ice. And again, as I said, the additional training burden for paramedic services to maintain competency on the watercraft, because they're operating it commercially, right? So they have to be actually trained. They can't just get in the boat and go. So those are the points I would make with respect to the with respect to using a boat. Although it's worth exploring, because I think again it might be an alternative that might be cost effective. But I'm just saying, I think I'm skeptical about whether or not it could work.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Oh, sorry, hold on. We will be moving into committee of the whole.
Moved by Councillor Gowdy, seconded by Councillor Leonard, that council adjourn and meet as committee of the whole council with the deputy warden in the chair.
Anybody not in favor? All in favor? Carrying.
Chief Administrative Officer Kelly Pender, monthly report.
Thank you, everyone. Our monthly report for the month of November. And as usual, I will try to highlight a couple of things off of each page. And if there are questions, provide answers or follow up with council. Uh-oh. New tools. Thank you. November has been a particularly busy month, but I'll highlight a couple of things. We did meet with the Communal Services Technical Committee. Will be meeting next Monday, along with the board of directors and key staff from the townships. So that's going to be a good kickoff to our Frontenac Municipal Services Corporation. The Warden's Wine and Cheese is November the 29th, and I'm sure everybody has their invitation. And if you haven't responded to Brianna, please do. The Municipal Service Corporation, we received word from Harold Van Winsen, who is our partner at Templeman LLP in Belleville. Templeman also did the incorporation for the Eastern Ontario Regional Network, the EOWC, and the Eastern Ontario Leadership Council. So he's very familiar with the process. So effective November the 5th, we are an incorporated entity, and we look forward to working with the Technical Advisory Committee that we appointed at the last meeting to go through some of the issues. The agenda for that has been finalized by the clerk and should be out shortly. As part of that, Director Gallivan and I'll just go back a slide here. Director Gallivan and I have met with a number of different agencies and counties. Yesterday, we presented to Renfrew County. Next week, we're in Peterborough County. We previously presented to Leeds and Grenville, Haliburton County. And Friday morning, we'll be presenting to the EOWC CAOs on the communal services issue. As a result of that, a number of organizations have gone to visit the Nuterra facility in Brockville. The Renfrew County delegation is going next week. The EORN and EOWC group went 3 or 4 weeks ago. So we are receiving a lot of movement on that as well. We met last Friday with MP Scott Reed and MPP John Jordan to give them an overview. They've asked for a bit of follow-up and we'll be providing that today. But I have to say that everybody that we've met with is positive about the ideas, enthusiastic about providing services in rural communities. The EOWC is highlighting the Verona housing project as the response in the 7 and 7 project. And Warden Vanderwall will be presenting to the MPPs on November the 23rd, and he's nervous about it. No, he isn't nervous. So we hope to have a good response there as well. And MPP Jordan will be at that meeting, and seems very enthusiastic about the issue moving forward. And I think we all understand that building $50 million water treatment plants and sewage treatment plants isn't the answer for rural Ontario.
Did MP John Gerritsen decline the invitation or have a conflict? And is Ted Hsu being invited for the MPPs because Kingston and the Islands has a different set?
Yeah, Ted Hsu will be invited to has been invited to the MPP meeting on the 23rd. I haven't seen the final list of who will be coming. The meeting with Jordan and Reed was at the request of Scott Reed, who we met with on Parliament Hill a month prior to that. So he set up the meeting with John Jordan. We'd previously, so it was his meeting, we were invited, I guess is the way to put it. We have briefed Ted Hsu as well, and we have briefed John Gerritsen. We probably need to bring them both up to speed, but if Ted Hsu was at the meeting on the 23rd, he will receive the full information as well.
MP Gerritsen was invited to Ottawa and declined.
Yeah. Oops, I'm going in the wrong direction because Brianna gave me a new clicker and I've clearly failed at that. So just in terms of the Warden's Caucus, and I think I've touched on most of these, but I would also like to thank Barb McCollum and Brianna. They've been assisting with the EOWC HR working group, which held their meeting on November the 9th. So each CAO within the EOWC is responsible for one of the working groups that looks at issues across the region, everything from grievances to collective bargaining. And their meeting was on the 9th, and I'll be bringing a report to the CAOs on Friday morning. I'm also part of the long-term care working group, and we're finalizing the information that will be presented to the wardens in December as part of what will go to Roma. So a number of different AMO communications, but I think the one that you should be aware of is the Roma conference, which is the annual conference of the Rural Ontario Municipal Association in Toronto. I cannot go with the deputy warden because we need snow tires on our suitcases the last time we tried it. But I urge you to register if you haven't, and if you're looking at delegations, the deadline for delegations is coming up quickly. The University of Waterloo is hosting information sessions regarding hiring of co-op students. So this is a really good opportunity, and I've used the University of Waterloo on a number of different occasions for projects. So if you have a specialty project in your municipality, and Waterloo is wonderful on the engineering side, recreation, business students, I encourage you to reach out. It is a good way to provide a glimpse into municipal world for students and to get work done at a reasonable cost. I was advised yesterday that we were successful in receiving an intern through the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus and the Environmental Leadership Institute to assist us with the Municipal Service Corporation. So that's a a bonus as well. So we should have somebody in place early in the new year that will assist the warden and I and Joe on that implementation. And we thank the Warden's Caucus and the Environmental Leadership Institute.
Thank you for highlighting the University of Waterloo. I'm a graduate of Waterloo. I went through the co-op program, and your head is only half as big when it comes out, and you have a real appreciation of the world or a better appreciation of the working world. And it's just an excellent program.
It is. My sister did it as well. And if you couldn't get into U of T or Queens, Waterloo was a good alternative.
Every now and then I have a loss for words. This might be one of them.
Sorry.
Judy.
I was accepted at all of them, but I went to Waterloo.
Oh, wow.
So
What can I say?
just going back though to the Roma and that, in light of the delegation that we had earlier in that, is there an opportunity for the county to apply for a delegation to the Minister of Health regarding paramedic services at Roma?
There is, but we generally piggyback on the Warden's Caucus, and that is on the agenda for the Warden's Caucus as well. So, take direction from council, but the warden will be in front of the Minister of Health if that delegation is accepted to talk about.
As I said, because of the delegation, that I think it highlighted the uniqueness within our county and the challenges that we will never be able to meet the CTAS 1 services at this point in time. And I think it behooves us to look at getting a delegation there.
It might be just, if I may, it might be more appropriate for Frontenac Islands Township to apply and invite the county.
I asked that last night and they didn't. So that's why I'm asking.
The
county.
ministry refused?
No, the council.
Okay. I'll leave it.
I guess
council
the
direction.
question would be, EOWC will be talking about the response times as part of their presentation.
Correct. We will be referencing the Apex Pro report and updating the information regarding, in particular, hospital wait times. So it will be on the agenda, and there will be it's pretty rare that the Warden's Caucus has refused a delegation.
Yes. Ron?
I think in fairness, I don't know if I would ever use the word never meet those requirements. I would think that, and everybody that I have ever talked to at any level recognizes the same thing. If there is not an offloading issue, it changes the whole game. Because all of those ambulances are free. So I never like to use the word never. I try not to, but everybody recognizes what the bottleneck is, and it's no surprise to anybody. And that's what they're trying, whether we think they are or not, to eliminate.
And to be fair to our colleagues at Kingston Health Science Center, that we are one of the better health hospitals in terms of offload delay in Eastern Ontario. Now, we will be updating that data for the meeting with the Warden's Caucus, and we did receive extra funding. We receive the funding and we give it to the hospital for another offload delay nurse. But at the end of the day, if that offload delay nurse doesn't exist, there isn't.
Jerry?
I should probably let this go by, but knowing me, I really can't. I'd like to point out that, well, Frontenac Islands is unique because it's got water all around it. It's not that unique because we got rock and bush all around us, and like the northern part of our township is an hour away from an ambulance, 45 minutes at a really good day. And, there's no internet service in places and so on. So when this group comes and does the presentation, it's great. They did a great job. They made some good points. It just doesn't apply to Frontenac Islands. If the ambulance from Robertsville gets pulled out and the one at Parham is the next one south, like 30 minutes, 35 minutes away, the closest ambulances would be, if it was where I am, it's still an hour. And I'm on the eastern side. That would come out of Perth or out of maybe Lanark. But it is not just the Frontenac Island issue. It is an entire township area or county area, and adjacent counties have the same issue.
I think we need to go forward with the briefing and leave this discussion for another point on the agenda. So Kelly, just please keep going.
Thank you. The Howe Island quarter ferry report is in front of you in the package as well, and Mr. Dillabaugh is here if there are any specific questions. I would note that we're beginning to enter the period where we're comparing like to like, the 2 lanes to 2 lanes. And when we do a year-end upgrade, or the 2 lanes, to 2 lanes to 2 lanes versus previous ones that were the current 2-lane situation to 3 lanes on the ferry prior. The number of vehicles, the number of bikes, the number of passengers, the number of voyages are in front of you, and Rob has done a summary. So small vehicles down by about 7.5%. Large vehicles are rising. There's a lot of construction-related activity on the island. Bicycles, which we always encourage. The township has been initiated this process a couple of years back, and bicycle traffic is up as well. The number of passengers was down very slightly. The number of vehicles left behind was also down slightly, and the number of trips was up by about 10%. So just moving on to the administrative building redevelopment update, and as council is aware, we meet every 2 weeks on the site, and we're pretty pleased with the progress that we're making. We're down to the final things that are being decided, and the 2 queens of color, Brianna and Madam Clerk, are infinitely helpful. You don't ask me to pick the colors. That is, pardon me? No, Joe doesn't. No, Joe and we don't do colors. Joe has a good excuse. He's colorblind. I got the 8 Crayola, and Rosemary has the 64 pack, the sharpener in the back. So everything looks like blue to me. So in the Heritage Building, all of the flooring is being completed, and Brianna's included some pictures here. The millwork is being installed and looks very nice. The mud and tape going on in the main floor and in the council chambers. The exterior, the backfilling around the building, and the patio work is largely done. There will likely be some landscaping that will be left over till the spring. They were to be paving the new parking arrangement out front this week or next before freeze up. So we're making good progress. So on the right is a picture of the new council chambers. And just to give you some perspective of the size of the council chambers, actually, that is the paramedic suite. Sorry. The paramedic suite, which is on the ground floor, main floor. The septic view suite, or the garden view suite, depending on your perspective. The one on the left is a small meeting room on the 2nd floor of the old house. Millwork on the left is in the main collaboration space on the 1st floor, and the one on the right is the former lunchroom. If you remember, on the paramedic suite, the lunchroom that was there is now going to be a meeting room. So still looking at the end of December for taking over. By the time we get moved back in and get furniture assembled, we're hoping for early January occupancy. So we're making good progress. Barb and her team have provided an update on recruitment. We're still on track to be well over 400 recruitments through the end of the year, which is on track from previous years. A lot of interviews ongoing in all areas at Fairmount. CUPE labor interest arbitration date was on November the 10th. Both sides presented their case to the arbitration panel, and they'll be meeting over the next few weeks. And we have till December 15th to provide a response to the union's position. A number of arbitrations with OPSU over the past few months. One has been withdrawn and one has been resolved. and 3 ongoing investigations. The HRIS system, Star Garden, the performance management and succession management remain in the testing phase as we work through the bugs, and our lead on that, Candace Keller, is being diligent on that. The scheduling, we're looking at the Star Garden has recently revamped their scheduling software, which would integrate nicely, but it needs to be able to deal with 3 unions, and those 3 unions work 24/7, 365. So it's fairly complicated. We've also back at our leadership growth and doing 360 feedback for managers. There's 10 that have been out for the past couple of weeks, and Barb and her team lead that, and then meet with the individuals to review their 360 review. The results from the disability management program audit, overall rating of 3 out of 4 on the point scale, and achieved a 73.5% meeting, which meant that we were meeting or exceeding Canadian and global industry average scores in most elements. And Barb and her team will present a summary presentation with some recommendations to senior leadership in December, and we'll follow up with council after that. So Fairmount Home update. Halloween's always a big time, and spooky costumes and dancing music, and Fairmount enjoyed a wonderful and happy Halloween. A couple of pictures here for you to look at. Frontenac paramedics, along with a number of other services, we have launched a social media campaign talking about violence against paramedics. And just a couple of stats, when we survey our staff, 100% of our paramedics have experienced verbal abuse of some shape, manner, or form. 65% have experienced a physical assault in the line of duty. The Neighbor Saving Neighbors program, which is a wonderful initiative that we've partnered with Queen's University on, and Mark Gowdy, our deputy chief, and Matt Mills, our communications officer, have been working on that team. And we now have 68 active volunteers, and we've had 5 community responses to date. So that's excellent. That's getting a defibrillator to the patient as quick as possible and meeting the guidelines. The community paramedicine program has commenced the flu shot and COVID vaccines. 250 flu and over 200 COVID vaccines have been distributed to date. And the education specialty team has been established and will assist with training, orientation, and mentoring. So in terms of social media, the total number of engagements for October was just over 51,000. The October 18th council meeting and October 24th and 25th budget presentation meetings earned about 105 hours of watch time and 263 viewers on the county YouTube channel. The most engaged with social media posts in October were the message from Frontenac paramedics to Queen's University students and alumni related to crowd events at homecoming. And in terms of the number of digital engagements, next slide. Among social media and web items that earned the highest audience engagement in October are the October 23rd media newsletter in cooperation with the Frontenac, Lennox and Addington, Ontario Health Team about rural Frontenac Community Services volunteer drivers. An October 13th social media post from Fairmount about Sue's retirement and her role from the home, our longtime hairstylist, and an October 27th post across the county channels about construction progress on the joint admin facility. And again, thank you to Matt and the staff at Fairmount for all they do in terms of communicating important issues. Planning update, and the directors here if you have any questions, but the county official plan amendment OPA 3 was adopted by county council, as you know. So that will enable this and support the use of communal services and the Frontenac Municipal Service Corporation. I mentioned the incorporation, but also just a big shout out to Queen's University School of Urban and Regional Planning and some of their senior level students who completed a project looking at design standards for the hamlet of Marysville on Wolf Island and their presentation and public meetings. And it's always great to cooperate with Queen's University, and they've been an excellent channel for developing young planners in Ontario, and we've managed to take advantage of that a couple times ourselves. So planning activity, additional applications were lower for October and November because of 2 committee of adjustment meetings were canceled, one in the north because of a lack of new files and one in central because of a temporary staffing shortage. Applications for north include passing housekeeping amendments for their zoning bylaw, and Central Frontenac last night considered their fees bylaw and passed that. So thank you, everyone. The economic development updates. A wonderful event yesterday, and Joe and I had the pleasure of being there for most of the workshop, and Richard and Debbie organized a wonderful event. We had about 65 people registered. People were coming and going throughout the day, and it was a wonderful event. I particularly enjoyed the campfire chats and the discussion about the Frontenac brand and how to integrate that with your business was well received. And it was, I said to Debbie, we were standing at the back, and this is just wonderful to hear laughs and have people comment about what a wonderful process it was, and they really enjoyed it. Also, good support from Frontenac County businesses as part of the panel and attending, and we want to thank them for it. And the warden was present for the awards ceremony, and thank you very much for doing that. The actual prize was a pottery lantern developed by one of our local artisans, and it was absolutely wonderful. There it is, as we were speaking. So the 2023 award was created by Tracy Bamford of Water's Edge Pottery in Central Frontenac, and it truly was a magnificent award, and I'm sure that the award recipients were very glad to have it. And finally, congratulations to the Frontenac Business Award winners. Memory Lane Flowers for Business of the Year, the New Business Grains and Good Bakery, Partnership and Collaboration Award, Clarendon Station, Sustainability Award, Bloom Farm, and the Women-Led Business, the Canadian Handy Women. So thank you to everybody that participated, and it truly was a wonderful event, a great opportunity to show off the facility at the camp. It is truly a gem of a place, and Eagle Lake, of course, is a gem as well. So
One of those gems in the middle of nowhere, and there it is.
and there it is, and you just go, wow, this is pretty amazing.
Judy, you had your hand up, I think, back with the ferry stats.
Actually, for a few points in that. One, I just wanted to make a quick comment after Councillor Lichty pointed out North Frontenac's challenge of 45 minutes. That would be considered a best case scenario on Wolf Island, and 2 wrongs don't make a right. So the delay time is still an issue. I want to ask council if they have asked MTO for a solution to the Howe Islander 2 reduction of 33% of carrying, because we're looking at the stats right now, and at this point in time, I'm concerned that there may be people deciding not to come to the island, including providers of contractors, and that they're charging extra fee or just flat out not coming because of delay. And I'm wondering, since the county is the operator, have you approached the MTO for a solution? Because what Howe Island had asked for and paid for was a 15-car ferry, not a 10.
So as the councillor is aware, I provided a report to this council in December, providing Frontenac Islands Township with 5 different options for them to choose with. The ministry engaged 3GA Architects and presented an option on September the 20th of last year. And our lawyer wrote them a letter in November, but at this point, the township needs to make a decision as to what they require, and the ministry will take into consideration because you pay, we don't pay. So you've been provided with the options, and it's up to the island to decide what option you wish to choose. And if you wish, I could go through those 5 options again.
Thank you. I think the new council needs to see those 5 options laid out. Because the situation is intolerable, as many of the residents have pointed out. Also during the
If you do look at the numbers don't bear that out, but that's another story.
Okay. Also, the tour of Fairmont Home that had been trying to be arranged, and there seemed to be very poor coordination for the date for other people, and that I'm still interested in having a tour if that can be arranged. As a new counselor, I think it's important. And I'm sorry that I missed the economic development soiree and that I must have skipped that email on that because I wasn't aware of that date. Thank you.
It was posted on Facebook a number of times and shared around.
And it was in my last CAO's report as well.
Yes.
Since I'm a member of the Economic Development Committee, I'm just surprised I didn't get a notice. Thank you.
I think Richard did mention it to us, but again, there's so many dates that it's hard to get to everything. Okay, anything else for Kelly? Fred first and then Warden.
Thank you. Regarding the tours of the Fairmont Home, do we all have to go as a group, or can we, as an individual, set up a date and have a tour on our own with one of the staff?
The idea was that we were going to do a group tour. The problem has been that we've been in and out of outbreak for most of the fall. So we've scheduled a couple of dates, but had to cancel because we were in outbreak. So hopefully that fall flurry will ease up a little bit and we'll be able to pick a date.
It might also be not a bad idea to wait until we move back into our administration building and do it after a council meeting. So it's not a special trip for us when we're there and do it. And also too, right now, I believe everybody needs to be masks. So why risk us taking something in or getting something to have a tour when we could do it maybe in later winter when we're there anyway? It's not going anywhere. It's going to be there. Okay. Warden Vanderwall.
I just want to make a comment, and if it's out of place, Mr. Pender can slap me later.
Hey, I'm in control, not him.
So earlier in the meeting, obviously the cat's out of the bag, and I don't see anywhere in his report where he's making any comment to it, nor on this agenda. So I would like to personally say, and usually when I get into personal things, I get a little emotional, so I try not to do that. But as everybody knows, Kelly Pender is resigning from the county, and it's our loss. It really is.
Thank you, Warden. And you still got me for several more months. So
I have not went to a meeting where he has not provided me with everything that I either need to know or need to say. He picks me up, he drops me off, he takes care of me. Couldn't ask for a better person to work with, so.
thank you.
And I just want to add to that as a former warden as well. I thought it was just me that you were being so Mr. Chauffeur for, but it is true. There's not a lot of CAOs that is that courteous and that thoughtful to their wardens. Often they want to go in the opposite directions, not be there for us, but 100%, your shoes are going to be very difficult to fill. We've so appreciated all that you've done for us over the past number of years. And we're very sorry to see you go. And we're going to make you work hard between now and that end date. So you can take that to the bank.
Usually after a eulogy, there's egg salad sandwiches and warm ginger ale.
We'll
So
get you some.
Still a couple of muffins left in the kitchen.
We're working on the egg salad here.
Jerry.
I would just like to echo what the warden and the deputy warden said. You've impressed me. As a new member to this council, you and I met along with the deputy warden and made me feel at home, updated me. Have always been there when I needed something. We will miss you. It's going to be difficult to replace you.
Do you want to announce the official date, seeing it's already?
Well, we've hired Palmer and Associates to do a recruitment program, and my discussion with the administration committee is that when we're ready to make an announcement on who that person is and what that timeline is, that I'll be going south on Battersea Road as they're coming in Battersea Road, and we'll make things work and make sure that the county is well served moving forward. So sometime before golf season was that. Or maybe a little into golf season if it starts. Yes.
Okay,
Thank you all.
all right, thank you. All right, we're going to move on then. There's no unfinished business. There's no consent reports from the CAO. Committee of Management of Fairmont Home.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Lichty, that Committee of the Whole Council adjourn and meet as Committee of Management of Fairmount Home with the Deputy Warden in the chair.
Any comments, questions? All those in favor? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears, seconded by Warden Vandewaal, resolved that Council of the County of Frontenac receive the Fairmount Home Registered Nurses Association of Ontario Best Practice Spotlight Organization Long-Term Care Letter of Support Report, and further that the Council of the County of Frontenac direct the clerk and warden to sign the Appendix B RNAO's Best Practice Spotlight Organization Long-Term Care Letter of Support.
Sorry, Judy.
Thank you. As a best practice champion with RNAO for many years in the past, I appreciate this program. That being said, I know that our nurse practitioners at Fairmont will be backfilled, and I assume they're going to have to be backfilled by contract staff because we only have contract staff backfilling many nursing positions. So I just want to make that point that there's a limitation perhaps of hours involved in that because it will impact the continuity potentially of their work at Fairmont. But it is a worthwhile program, and it's lovely to be a spotlight long-term care, especially when we're in the point of making decisions on whether to renovate it, build a new one, or anything else. It's actually quite an interesting time frame to go this route. But my first thought was the quality, and that because we have such a nursing shortage, to make sure that we have adequate backfill of such a key role.
Through you, Warden, could I make a comment in regards to the recent statement, and just wanted to advise County Council that the intention is the nurse practitioners will participate outside of their regular working hours for the most part to participate in this program.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Susan. Okay, all right. All those in favor of the motion? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Gowdy, that the Committee of Management of Fairmount Home adjourn and revert back to Committee of the Whole Council.
Questions, comments? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, corporate services.
Moved by Councillor Leonard, seconded by Councillor Fowler, resolved that Council of the County of Frontenac receive the Corporate Services Frontenac Howe Islander Ferry Fees and Fare Schedule Report, and further that a bylaw be introduced later in the meeting to adopt the 2024 Frontenac Howe Islander Ferry Fees and Fare Schedule.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Lichty, seconded by Warden Vandewaal. Be it resolved that up to $12,000 of the Canada Community Building Fund be allocated to assist with repairs to the KMP Trail between Clarendon Station and Robertsville Road.
Discussion? All those in favor? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears, seconded by Councillor Saunders, be it resolved that the County of Frontenac approve a contribution of $36,000 required for the EOWC Regional Housing Plan 7 in 7 Plus deliverables to March 31st, 2024.
Any discussion on this one? Jerry?
I found this really interesting. First of all, I'm in favor of the 7 in 7 program. It looks like $285,000 or $288,000 is required. Is there any additional requirement beyond that?
If I may, likely, but that will be a decision that'll be made in the new year. This will get us to the business plan component that will make us eligible for grants. As part of the pilot project for Verona, they will be applying for a grant to assist with communal services as well. So for the county, that would be roughly $175,000 investment for a $35,000 funding commitment. So I'm not sure where to go in the spring, but the wardens will decide and make a recommendation and bring it back as to what the next steps will be, whether we're all going to go on our own or whether we're going to try and do something regionally to support the project.
So thank you for that. I looked at the small paragraph about the 550,000 for Eorn and whatever, and saying we're 285,000 and it's essentially 10 months. And the first 2 were only partially costed because it was ramp up. And most likely we're going to go beyond this. So all I was getting at, I'm not complaining about the money, you're concerned about it. And so well, I'm always concerned about it, but I'm not concerned about. My position is, why don't we just take the $36,000 we owe right out of the stabilization reserve? We're $7.5 million short. $36,000 means nothing when you look at 7.5 million, or very, very little. So why not just take the whole 36,000 out of the replacement reserve now? And at the end of the day, it's just an idea. If it doesn't get passed or doesn't get accepted, I won't fall on my sword. But put $20,000 on next year's levy with the idea of looking forward to where we're possibly going to be. So, and if additional requirements come, we have 20,000 in the budget. We may be able then to morph that into additional 20,000 the following year, rather than say we're going to split it 10 and 24 to get below the 3%, and then put 26,000 on the levy. So all I'm saying is pay the 36,000 out of the current stabilization fund, put $20,000 on the budget. You'll be a little less than 2.99%, and Bob's your uncle. You look forward. That's all.
And Bob's your uncle. Judy?
Have an uncle, Bob. I'm close.
My comments were along that same line, in that with rather than dragging the 26,000 out to the 2024 levy, and that would it be feasible and not imprudent to just take it straight out and call it what it is? It's this much money going out.
Alex, would you like to comment on this at all?
Sure. Thank you. Through you, Deputy Warden. And I think both comments were going towards different conclusions here. So Councillor Lichty, you were saying, take this out of the whole 36,000 out of the reserve, but include 20, you said, into your general levy, which was more or less what was proposed, just in different, but the dollars of work. Whereas I believe Councillor Greenwood Spears, you're saying take the whole 36 out and deal with the rest next year. Is that, so there's 2 different approaches right now. There's like a third approach on the table, which was essentially fund 26 of it out of your current levy this year, and the other 10 out of stabilization. So in terms of how council wants to split that up, that's council's prerogative. I think between what Councillor Lichty is saying, it's just a change of words and a couple $1,000. More or less that's on the table. But if council did want to take that fully out of reserve, I mean, that can be brought back, and then we can revise the budget further.
Okay, so we have 2 options. Ron, did you want to chime in on this? So you're, okay, then I can chime in. I think if we're looking at a 2.99 levy by utilizing the 20,000 in this year, that we should do that. Again, we've got the room this year. We don't know what next year's going to bring. So I'd be in favor of doing what was proposed. Yes.
Now I do.
Now you're going to chirp in.
Well, I think it, in fairness, it needs to come as a motion because I think the budget's going to get approved here, isn't it? Aren't we already talking? Well, we were talking about if there was any draft revisions, so I guess it could still happen before it comes to the next council meeting, right? Is that
Alex will tell us that.
And if I may, I believe the motion on the floor right now is to approve the $36,000 payment.
right?
How we'll actually pay for that, we can deal with the budget revision report at that time.
So then can't we still have this? We can do this discuss. It doesn't have to be approved today. It
No.
obviously can go, that discussion can still go to the budget meeting then.
The
But
30
Councillor Lichty is giving options of what he thinks we should do.
And both counselors have said they're in favor of the 36,000.
Right.
It's just how to fund it. So
Right.
I guess the motion in fact is that the 36,000 be our contribution. And then we'll figure out how to fund that after with the options that were presented.
Right.
All right, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the motion? It's unanimous, carried. And something fell. All right, let's move on to the draft budget revisions.
Resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac received the Corporate Services 2024 Draft Budget Revision Report, and further that council amend the budget to reflect the adjustments outlined in the report. And finally, that the Council of the County of Frontenac pass a bylaw later in the meeting approving the 2024 budget.
So we're good with it? No, Judy?
No, that's where it needs to change because in this report, it's specific staff are recommending the contributions initiative be funded 10,000 from the stabilization and the remaining 26,000 funded from the tax levy of 2024. So I would make a friendly amendment that be withdrawn. And as Warden Vanderwall indicated at a later meeting, we can have a more fulsome discussion on whether it comes out of this year's budget that we're currently in, if we have the money, versus putting it forward into 2024.
So this is the draft revision report that we're discussing right now. And Alex, that 36,000 isn't reflected in there right now.
So
Yes,
right
it
now,
is.
that 36,000 expense is in there. The recommendation was to take 10,000 from stabilization, 26,000 funded from the levy.
Okay, so that's what we're approving here. Okay, all right. All those in favor? Opposed? 3 carried, right?
Can we have a recorded vote?
Well, I guess I need some clarification then. What are the options here? What are we talking about? Taking 10 from 26 if it's already in the budget? It's just a matter of whether we take it out of this pot or that pot. So what was the difference?
Okay, so I went through my idea many times and have similar conclusions. I don't like 2.99. I'd rather see it 2.9. It's like shopping at Walmart. And I know 3% is kind of a no-no land, going above that. All I was suggesting is $36,000 is basically money that we already have because we were fortunate enough to gain additional interest we hadn't counted on. So in the looking at the entire stabilization fund, the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot of money. So that's the first part. The second part is to be proactive. I would suggest putting an additional 20,000 onto the 24 levy. So when it comes time, and it will, this summer or next fall, when we need another 40, 50, 60, or $100,000, we already have X amount of dollars sitting in there. But either way, the essential dollars are the same. It's just where do you take them from? And quite frankly, I can go with either one.
And on that note, because we have had the windfall of the extra interest on our monies, I think we should take it and clear it out for this year. We earned the extra money in revenue this year. We want to spend this $36,000, just get it done and clear and clean, and don't worry about 2024 even boosting it up.
So you're agreeing with Jerry, take it out of the stabilization.
Where we
Fine.
differ is that he'd like to have 20,000
Put
in
back
next year's budget. And I'm saying we've got a windfall this year, just pay it out, call it a day.
Okay. So I'm not sure what this motion is actually saying. It's, Alex, help me.
I'll maybe just back up with some context and then I'll throw it back to the floor and then we can figure out the motion or at least the direction to bring forward in December. So at the budget meeting, we pretty much had two mutually exclusive issues. There was a strong sentiment around the ring, at least that I gathered. Council was trying to get under 3%. Council also realized that our stabilization reserve was far below its target based on what we'd funded in previous years. So that's where the 2% motion came in because we were at a position where we couldn't really fund the one-offs anymore. The 10,000 from the stabilization 26,000 reserve was kind of trying to middle the two mutually exclusive things. You wouldn't get on 3% if you did all reserve. But again, if you're taking it out of the stabilization reserve, you're still below 10% probably, which is still $750,000 under the target. So trying to middle the two was where that 10 and 26 came from. But again, if council has a different direction or wants to go somewhere else, open to do it and we'll provide that update in December.
Okay, so we do have an amendment to the motion that I'll get Jeanette to read. We need a mover and seconder. This is for the 26.
So from what I'm hearing from council discussion is that you want the motion on the budget amended to put the entire $36,000 request from EOWC and take it from stabilization reserve and add a further $20,000 to the levy for 2024. Am I hearing that correctly? And I need a mover and a seconder for that. Does that work for you, Mr. Lemieux?
So Jerry, you're moving that?
I will move that.
We need a seconder. Brett. So we'll call the vote on that first. Discussion?
So if we were only taking 10 out of the reserve and 20, whatever it is, was already in the budget at 2.77 or whatever, I'm comfortable of more leaving it the other way around. I don't agree with putting a 20,000 contribution because 20,000 isn't going to make any difference next year. It's not. I mean, if they come back, I don't think they're going to say, and now the county's portion would be 20,000. It's not. So I think if we agree to the budget in principle at the 277 or whatever we agreed to last meeting, and that we had 10 coming out of a reserve and 26 was in the budget, then I'm comfortable with that number the way it is.
Jerry.
Just for clarity, I like mine a little better, but at the end of the day, the money is the same, plus or minus. Just the way I'm suggesting just looks like we're a little more progressive because we're looking at a bigger picture. But either way will work.
Okay, so we need to vote on the amendments, either agree to it or defeat it. And then we go back to what the original is, right? That is what's in the original.
Well, and there are other changes within that report that are not, and those are mostly, I think, operational change. So the Food Policy Council got worked in, the two project proposals got taken out. Those have been reflected as well as updated city. So those likely will stay. And I think the issue at hand or that we're discussing would be how to fund this EOWC contribution.
Yes. Okay, so do you want to read the amendment again?
So that the motion be amended to add an additional clause and further that the budget be amended to put the $36,000 request from EOWC to take the $36,000 request from the EOWC from the stabilization reserve and further that an additional $20,000 be added to the levy for 2024.
Okay, all those in favor, and I want to see your hands up high so I can count. 1, 2. All those opposed? It's defeated. So we will go back to the original motion. Oh, okay, what's your amendment? An amendment to the amendment? Okay, so that Judy's moving that. So the entire 36 comes from stabilization, nothing on the levy. Okay, do we have a seconder? Okay, no seconder. So we can't put it on the floor. So what is on the floor then is the original motion, which incorporates what was proposed. The 36 and the 10, the 26 and the 10. All right, that's what we're voting on. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. That was a tough one. All right. Information reports. That's just for information. Reports from the Advisory Committee of Council. There's none. A return to council.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Warden Vandewall, that council revert from committee of the whole council to council.
All those in favor? Carried. Ron, do you want to shift or just stay there?
There's not much left, is there?
So moved by Deputy Warden Smith, seconded by Councillor Lichty, that the report of the committee of the whole council be adopted and that the necessary actions or bylaws be enacted.
Any comments? All in favor? Carried. Any notices of motions? What?
There are no motions coming forward.
Yeah,
but I think
or
we're asking-
any which would be like to be given? Serving notice of motion, none? Okay, communications? Any questions from that list of communications that you would, oh, sorry. Councillor Fowler?
Regarding item F and item S from the letters from Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance. Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance is offering to help us out regarding trails. And I just want to bring it to the council's attention that they're quite capable of assisting the county regarding help running the KMP trail or any other trail that we have in the county. Just to give you a little bit of a background. Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance is a not-for-profit charity. Last year they had permit sales about $412,000, and they're already up to $360,000. That's where they get some of the revenue, but they also get their revenue from grants that are available. There is a $1.6 million in the Investing in Canada Infrastructure program, and there's 41 months left, so there is money there that they can tap into. Also, the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance is really in favor of a one-pass system, and also the EOTA anticipated a budget of this year of $1.7 million. They have spent $1.35 million to date. Also, I think the county should invite the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance manager and maybe the one of the officials to do a presentation with council, so that we're all aware of what they can do for us. And that's what these two letters are basically about, and I think we should take it into consideration.
Okay, I think that would have to be maybe served as a notice of motion to request counsel if they want to ask instead of one individual. Would that be fair enough? So if you want to serve notice of motion just saying that you would like these presentations, then that way it'll come to the next council meeting and they can vote whether they would like this presentation. Is that fair enough?
Yes,
Okay,
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Gowdy.
Thank you for throwing me off. Item number L from Roger Hogan. It's more of a question. Seeing as I am a new member on this council, is it possible for the council to get the cost benefit analysis for the whole KMP trail that was done? This gentleman was just asking about one for the north section, but I was just looking for information for the whole trail when they started that.
Madam Clerk,
Again, that would be a notice of motion that you would need to bring to council.
you're serving notice of motion to ask for that information. That would come to, yes, Mr. Pender?
There isn't a return on investment report per se. There was the original master plan and several revisions to that, which Mr. Hogan has. He is looking for a detailed economic study of what the return on investment is for the trail. And we don't have that.
So that kind of defeats the motion then? Okay, thanks, Nikki. Councillor Greenwood Spears.
That was the point that I was actually going to ask about as well on that. And what is our council's position, since we are investing a lot of money into the KMP trail and we don't have a return on investment report, and that maybe we need to have the motion that there be one created and reported to this council on that, because we're spending a lot of money and have spent a lot of money. And it'd be nice to know if we're getting any return on our investment.
Well, I would think in fairness, and I don't know, somebody can correct me from staff if I'm wrong. To do a return on investment would be a fairly costly venture to say that there is no return on investment. And I know as a municipality, if you're looking for a return on investment in recreational or an economic development, it's going to be zero. South Frontenac just went through a whole very long process of having an actual consulting firm to look at all of our recreational facilities. Everything that we provided in the return is about 1 or 2% of what it costs. So if you're providing a service and taxpayers are generally paying for it, you have to make the decision whether you're providing that service because it's a benefit to everybody or not because it's going to make you money. Because you could never, I know we've had these discussions and we could never charge fees to recoup what the cost is. It would just never, well, nobody would use them for starters. So that's very difficult to do. And I think you're not going to be able to get a report that says there's a return on investment for, I mean, Muddy Waters isn't going to say our business went up 50% because you did the trail and give you that number. I don't think, and somebody can correct me if there's a simpler way. Deputy Warden Smith.
It's one of those things that's almost impossible to measure. But I think we all know, living in these communities and seeing the action on the trails, that there's definitely an economic benefit to the municipalities. The people that are coming in who've never been to our community before are now coming in on ATVs, snowmobiles, bicycles. In the summertime, you have bicycles from all over Canada. Quebec had a whole pile of people come through on bicycles. So there has to be an economic development impact. But measuring it is next to impossible. And I don't think we need to, because we know there is an effect in our communities.
I think the decision mostly made by council is whether they want to support funding it or not, those sort of things. It's not whether we're going to make money on it. Councillor Greenwood Spears.
I think one of the measures that could be looked at is the creation of any new businesses. Because while if you already are an established business and there's an increased use of the trail, it's not a far leap to say, okay, there's probably going to be more people showing up. But are we creating any new businesses? Because that's where true economic development needs to be looking at.
Gonna ask Richard if he wants another job. to measure that somehow. Anyway. So if you want to make that, serve that as a notice of motion, that's up to you, and then we'll see whether we're going to discuss it or ask staff to follow up with it. Okay? You want to answer or you want to wait for a notice of motion?
I'll draw council's attention to this year's business plan. I do highlight the potential return that we receive from the amount of users that we count on the trail. So we have a trail counting system. So we have estimated return on investment based on average spending. So we have some numbers that we track as part of our business planning process. But if you want a comprehensive return on investment report, we would need a notice of motion that can go along that lines.
Councillor Lichty, you had a comment?
Yes, if we went ahead and did this and it came out at 1 or 2% or 10% or whatever, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to stop funding this? We have this phenomenal resource. It's almost complete. You know, we are in it. Decision was made by previous councils. So it's maybe nice to know, but I'm not in favor of spending any massive dollars to determine an answer that we can't do anything about.
So on that note, we'll wait for the serve of notice of motion and you can make that exact comment when it comes back. Okay? So we have a couple of notices of motion. I think Nikki has withdrawn her. So Fred has one and Judy has one. Okay? Okay. Any other questions on the information items? Seeing none? Other business? I guess we've discussed enough other business. Bylaws.
Moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears, seconded by Councillor Gowdy. Resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce bylaws A through D that have been circulated to all members of County Council, and that bylaws A through D be read a first and second time.
Any questions? All in favor? Carry.
Moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears, seconded by Councillor Gowdy. Resolved that bylaws A through D be read a third time, signed, sealed, and finally passed.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carry.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Saunders, that the meeting hereby adjourn at 10:57 a.m.
All in favor? Carry. Thank you.